Can't stop me. I'm telling you fools that I got nothing left to lose. Broken and bruised, black and blue, still on the move. And I'm showing the world I still got a lot more to prove. Now I'm coming out swinging for your throat to ring. Standing there bleeding, yeah, you know what I bring. Know what I mean? Dark when the bell is rung, cause it's a little too late now to tell me run. Get up and run. You're broken every part of me. I'm putting it up and down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher now. Don't fuck with me. Never gonna hold me down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher. The world can't stop me now. You see it's the calm before the storm. I was born for more, now you got me ready for war. Remember my name, everybody out of my way. Back up or get knocked out, this ain't a game. Cause I never stay down when they push me around. See the world stand up when they give you the crown. Now it's no time, do or die, dead or alive. You can try to kill me, but I will survive. I will survive. You're broken every part of me. I'm putting everything down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher now. Don't fuck with me. Never gonna hold me down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher. The world can't stop me now. You can't stop me. Can't stop me. No, 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 you can't stop me. I'm bloodied and I'm beaten down. I keep rising higher, 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 higher. You're broken every part of me. I'm bloodied and I'm beaten down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher now. Don't fuck with me. Never gonna hold me down. I keep rising higher, higher, higher. The world can't stop me now. Can't stop me, no, can't stop me.
And what's up, all y'all trickly bastards, and welcome back to It's 1700 Somewhere. As always, I'm Athen, and I'm currently alone. Shay will hopefully be hopping in here at some point. She has a meeting that she has to do. So, yeah. So if she's hops in, she'll hop in. If not, I'm going to cover this by myself. Usually I don't do so great at that, but I'm going to do what I can. As the title states, we usually talk about Florida man and other interesting and weird and wacky news. First story that I have for today is a fairly interesting one. This is man saves 2 lobsters from the pot after 1 in a billion sighting at a market. Let me actually go ahead and get my share screen up because it works better if you guys can see the stories that I'm talking about. All right, so moving on over here. So, man saves 2 lobsters from the pot after 1 in a bill. Notifications keep you updated. I already have notifications. But Joseph Lee found the 2 orange Canadian lobsters at a fishmonger in landlocked Leicester, so stepped in to save them from being cooked by pointing out how rare they were. So here's a video of the lobsters. The these guys are actually bright orange. That is a pretty neat looking lobster. So a man has beaten 1,000,000,000 odds after he found two incredibly rare lobsters at a fishmonger's in a landlocked county of Britain. Joseph Lee, 47, is a caterer who was shopping at Marco Wholesale, a cash and carry, when he stopped by the fishmongers to peruse their wares. When there, he couldn't believe his eyes as he saw two orange Canadian lobsters, which are so rare that just 1 in 30 million are ever caught, making the odds of finding two of them 1 in 1,000,000,000. Joseph then approached the fishmonger in a landlocked Leicester and convinced him not to sell the lobsters, which were listed for $25.50, but instead donate them to an aquarium. Which, that's actually pretty kick-ass. I'm sorry, I'm doing one thing real quick. La, 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 la. There we go. I did what I was doing. Sorry. Oh, you were able to watch that too. Okay, so, which were listed for $25.50, but instead donate them to an aquarium. Here's pictures of these lobsters, really bright orange, and you can still see the video over there in the bottom right corner playing. That's really neat. Usually you don't see lobsters that color unless they've already been cooked. So, just said I went in to do my usual shopping for my catering business. I saw these two orange lobsters from a distance and thought they were toys because that's the only time I've seen them orange apart from when they're cooked. I knew they wouldn't have put cooked lobsters in there because you need to keep lobsters in a special tank with flowing water below 7 degrees. I'm not sure if they're talking Celsius or Fahrenheit there, since this is the Mirror's a English news source, and Canada typically uses metric measurements for their temperature, so I'm assuming that's probably 7 degrees Celsius. I thought probably not 7 degrees Fahrenheit because that's cold. I thought someone was having a joke and had put a couple of orange toy lobsters in the tank. I got closer and noticed they were alive. I couldn't believe my eyes. I've been going to macro for 10 years and used to be a fishmonger myself, but I've never seen anything like that before. Rob the fishmonger told me they were really, really rare lobsters, and to get one in the tank was a 1 in 30 million chance. So the chances of having two are 1 in a billion. And it's like getting struck by lightning 3 times and surviving each time. To have not just one, but two in the tank is unimaginable. The dad of two from Leicester decided to try and save the lobsters from being sold, so spoke to the store manager who agreed to donate them to an aquarium. He said, I couldn't bear the thought that these extremely rare creatures would end up on someone's plate. I spoke to the manager of the catering division who said they would donate them to a sea life center. It's just incredible to see two of these amazingly colored lobsters. I'm glad they've been saved so they can be enjoyed by people. Live lobsters normally have a dark brown or gray coloring, which makes it easier for them to camouflage in the wild. So yeah, if you've ever actually seen like an actual live lobster that's not been cooked, they're like a deep muddy brown, sometimes almost like a reddish tint to them. Seeing one that's actually orange or like red like that you don't see that a lot. You see it with crawdads though occasionally. So Macro store manager Anthony Burris said, we have donated them to Birmingham Sea Life Center. After they arrived in the store from our delivery partners, we realized they were unique and not the norm. We called our quality assurance department and they did the rest. They called Birmingham Sea Life and they were collected on Saturday. So that's actually pretty awesome to see that these rare lobsters ended up getting not put to death. They got pardoned. They were able to have a long life because they don't look like a normal lobster, effectively. All right, so let's get on to some of our Florida man stories. All right, first Florida man story for today. And if Shay doesn't hop in, this show might be a little bit shorter than usual because I'm by myself. I don't have anyone to bounce comments and all that stuff off of. So, but I'll do some stories and I'll drag it out as long as I can. Florida man arrested after striking daughter with a slice of pizza. So a Florida man was arrested after striking his daughter in the face with a slice of pizza, according to deputies. On Saturday, May 23rd at around 5:30 p.m., Indian River County Sheriff deputies responded to a residence for a disturbance between a father and a daughter. Deputies say upon arrival, the victim, Kristen Warden, a 20-year-old female, had what looked to be tomato sauce on the left side of her face. The victim told police that her father, Tyler Warden, 41, came to her home Saturday afternoon to drop off pizza. But when she told Tyler that she was not feeling well and asked him to leave, Tyler refused and began arguing with her. Deputies say that when Tyler stepped outside of the threshold and of the front door, Kristen began to shut the door behind him, and that's when pepperoni started flying. According to the arrest affidavit, Tyler turned around and threw a slice of pizza at Kristen, striking her in the face. Kristen continued yelling at Tyler, telling him to leave, but he refused, and Kristen called 911. Deputies arrived at the residence and questioned Tyler, who admitted to throwing the pizza, but said he thought the door was shut behind him. Deputies say that they detected a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage on Tyler's breath. Tyler was taken into custody and transported to the Indian River County Jail, was arrested for battery. So he was charged as battery. Support Android users. Okay. So that's the end of the article. Yeah. So this brings a few things into question. One, like, what was this father and daughter's relationship like? You know, obviously there has to be some sort of trouble there. They're probably not getting along the best, I would assume, in order for this to actually be a factor. And then the fact that she called 911 on her dad for throwing a slice of pizza at her and refusing to leave. This sounds like it might be something that's kind of happens often, and she's worried about it. So, yeah, there's the Florida man story. If we can find any further information on this moving forward, we'll go ahead and bring that to you. So let me check for comments, see if anyone commented about that. Nope, no comments. All right, so we're going to move on to the next Florida man story. Like I said, this show might be a little bit shorter than typical. So this one, Florida's worst cop was just fired for misconduct for the 7th time. 7th time. All right. So it's sad because I love policing. I don't like corrupt cops, former Opelika Sergeant Jermaine Bosk said. And here's obviously a picture of this officer. A Florida police sergeant has been fired after allegedly conspiring to cover for a colleague who failed to secure an October crime scene, marking the 7th time the lawman has been terminated for misconduct and criminal behavior, officials said Friday. So how does if he's been fired 7 times for misconduct and criminal behavior, how is he still continuing to be hired as a police officer? The city of Opelika terminated the employment of Sergeant Jermaine Bosk this week after an internal review found he engaged a subordinate officer to create a false report and failed to secure a firearm at a crime scene last October. City manager John Pate told the Daily Beast. After the officer discovered the gun was missing and replaced it with a phony plastic version, Bosk was caught on body camera yelling at his subordinate, who appeared to have failed to secure the scene, before coaching him on how to conceal the truth. It's sad because I love policing, Bosk told the Miami Herald on Wednesday about his termination. I don't like corrupt cops. I hate when I'm portrayed as a dirty cop who slipped through the cracks. Andrew Axelrad, a lawyer for the South Florida Police Benevolent Association who is representing Bosk, told the Daily Beast that his client denies any wrongdoing and insists they plan to fight for his reinstatement. Though, if he's been fired 7 times, he's for misconduct and criminal behavior, how is he would be rightfully portrayed as a dirty cop. So here's a post by Glenna Milberg. Watch the body cam that got Opelika Police Sergeant Jermaine Bosk fired for a 7th time. He's reacting to a gun stolen on his officer's watch. Is he concocting a cover-up here per City Hall, or just not believing his officer's explanation per his Addy, whatever that means? All right, let's see if we can watch this one.
I went to check the call log and see if we got put their full case number. Anyway, case number was Bridge at night.
Anything else? You thought it was going to rain and you couldn't get a car. Yeah, I was covered with a car or something. Yeah, we're going to cover with a car, but I wanted to get wet.
So I don't know if you guys can hear the audio, but he was just talking about saying you thought it was going to rain and you didn't want it to get wet. So I think he said you covered it with a car. Talking about.
I went to the car, I got to check the log, I went back.
He's just saying that he went to the car, checked the log, and
25 years, it's fucking embarrassing.
the gun was missing.
He called me 5 minutes ago. Sorry, we need to get over here on the 3. This fucker switched out the gun. And you go back and you can see in his picture, he took a picture of it.
They
It doesn't
switched
put
out the gun?
They switched it out. You can see
Okay,
this
what
is
do we have back there
This
now?
is a 6-hour. That's a fucking power gun or something. We haven't touched it, but this is a 6-hour. You can tell by the handle. You can tell by the handle.
So it sounds like he's saying that someone else switched it. I don't know. So the firing marks the 7th time Bosk, once dubbed Florida's worst cop, has been fired during his 28-year career at the Opelika Police Department, with alleged violations ranging from excessive force, stealing from suspects, and misuse of police firearms. He has also been arrested and cleared 3 times. The countless misconduct claims have earned Bosk statewide attention, including a 2011 expose by the Sarasota Herald Tribune that stated his personnel file was more like a rap sheet than a resume. The bombshell report detailed more than 40 internal affairs complaints against the sergeant, noting that 16 were for excessive force or battery. Most recently, Bosk was found guilty of false imprisonment and witness tampering in 2014 after he allegedly illegally handcuffed a man trying to file a complaint against him. While he was sentenced to 364 days in jail, he did not serve any time. In 2016, a Miami-Dade appeals court overturned the witness tampering conviction after a judge ruled prosecutors failed to turn over any police records to Bosk's defense during his June 2014 trial. State Attorney's Office declined to retry Bosk, and an arbitrator eventually awarded his job back in 2018. Bosk declined the Daily Beast request for comment. Pate said the decision to terminate Bosk again stems from an October 15, 2020 incident in which officers were dispatched to a home after reports of an abandoned firearm. The night before, the Miami-Dade Police Department tried to apprehend an armed felon, and the gun was believed to be a part of that incident. Upon arriving on the scene, the primary officer located the firearm and notified dispatch and his supervisor, Sergeant Bosk, Pate said in a statement. During the course of the investigation, the officer left the firearm unattended and contacted Sergeant Bosk, who had left the scene. When Bosk realized the gun had been stolen, Pate says he immediately began coaching the primary officer with a false narrative, clearly intended to cover up the truth. According to body camera footage obtained by the Miami Herald, Bosk can be heard going through the cover-up story they plan to tell their colleagues, asking, "What do we tell them? What do we tell them you went to get in the car?" "I went to check the call log and see if we could pull a case number," the officer said, according to the outlet. "No, something else, anything else. You thought it was going to rain, and you came to get a tarp. You're going to cover it with a tarp or something. You didn't want it to get wet." Bosk is then shown telling another cop about the incident, stating that the officer called him 5 minutes ago about the gun being switched out and replaced with a fucking pellet gun or something. "I've been here over 25 years. It's fucking embarrassing, of course," Bosk is heard saying in the video. City dubs that by creating this false narrative, Bosk failed in his supervisory duties by not effectively addressing the mistake of the primary officer's failure to secure the firearm when he originally located it, and engaged in corrupt acts. Bosk and the officer also didn't attempt to find the missing gun, thus putting the community and his colleagues in danger. So, we'll read a little bit more of that. Continuing forward, let me find that. There we go. All right. Alex Axelrad told the Daily Beast he believes his client wasn't trying to cover up anything, but simply astounded that something so foolish could have occurred when the only job of the officer assigned was to babysit a gun until the detectives from another agency had arrived. Bosk did present potential reasons why the officer may have gone to his car, abandoning his assigned post. In no way was this intended to cover up the incident, but to try to determine if there were an acceptable reason for the officer to have abandoned his post, Axelrad said Friday, noting that when the officer made it clear he had abandoned his post, all reports about the incident were factual. There was never a direct or even implied order to do anything but tell the truth. Bosk was just trying to determine what the truth was when he first got to the scene, which is routine in police work. Dallaire also said that the officer who was responsible for losing the gun was only given a reprimand while his client has been terminated. A fact he believes is the result of the city not upholding basic due process. As to this being his 7th termination, each case needs to be looked at individually. The number is certainly high, but that is only because each case was so weak that a termination could not possibly have been sustained. Axelrad said, "This does not mean an officer can't have a stellar career and does something so egregious that they are terminated for a first offense. This certainly happens, and good cops, which are 99%, do not want to work with bad." He added that while an officer like Boss can appear to be problematic, it is the police administration's conducting improper investigations and its lack of integrity that drives that conclusion. With Bosk, it gets progressively worse, where at this point he would be terminated for the most minor of allegations, even if the underlying minor violation can't be proven, Axelrad added. Pate, however, notes that any reasonable person would believe that this record of criminal and official misconduct would be sufficient to prevent any individual from ever being a police officer, having the power to adversely impact the lives of citizens in our community, much as we have seen in the news lately. Unfortunately, the powerful police unions and employment arbitrators who sit in judgment of these cases have put Sergeant Vosk back to work as a police officer every time, he said, adding that this power denies the city ability to correct and punish a bad cop who tarnishes the badge. The city manager insisted that Bosk was given proper due process during the internal investigation and that officials heard his side of the story before making their termination recommendation. Axelrad, however, believes Bosk will wear his Oka Loka police uniform again. "I fully anticipate that an independent arbitrator will reinstate him to police sergeant," he said. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel this officer should be allowed to keep wearing a badge, or what? So Mickey says, "Wow, he left his body cam on while he did illegal shit. Impressive." Well, it wasn't actually even his body cam; it was the other officer with him they got that stuff from. And yeah, who they're saying. I mean, I guess I could kind of understand, because while watching the video, it doesn't necessarily directly seem like he's working on trying to figure out how to lie about the story. It just sounds like he's trying to figure out the story. Like, what the hell's going on here? How did this gun disappear? But we'll see. If I can find any updates on that one, I'll bring them to y'all in the future. So, moving right along, this is a story that you could only find in Florida. With Florida man. So a man wanted in connection to stolen trailer with Leonard Skinner memorabilia to be used for cancer benefit. Police say an arrest warrant has been issued for William James Walker, 38, for grand theft. Jacksonville, Florida. Orange Park police detectives are looking for a man in connection to a stolen trailer full of Leonard Skinner memorabilia that was going to be used for a charity event. OPPD says an arrest warrant has been issued for William James Walker, 38, for grand theft. Police say Walker is known to live transiently and frequents different hotels in the Jacksonville area. He has praying hands tattooed on his forearm and a spider tattooed on his shoulder. On April 9th, Joey Nichols noticed his white trailer, which had been parked outside of his Orange Park hotel room, had disappeared along with $12,000 worth of contents. Nichols was on his way to the Jimmy Van Zandt Cancer Benefit in Middleburg Saturday with a group of other organizers who are raising money for their cancer charity. They say auction items, T-shirts, and prizes were stolen while they were sleeping. And that's that entire article. That's why I was saying this show today might be a little short, because the articles don't really have a lot to them. Cancer charity trailer stolen ahead of weekend benefit, $12,000 worth. So here's another article. Go ahead and read this one because it's the same story. Let's see if this article says anything different. So, we are going to do the event, but I don't know what we are going to do now because we usually raise a lot of money with the merchandise, he told First Coast News. Cancer Benefit is named after Jimmy Van Zandt, cousin of the band members of Leonard Skinner. Jimmy died in 2016, and a nonprofit named after him raises money to financially support cancer patients. We've had power companies that turned off a guy's power and him bedridden in hospice care over a $78 power bill. I mean, it's sad, Nichols said. If you would like more information on the Saturday benefit, click here. Orange Park police are investigating the incident. So this dude stole from a charity organization that's helping people. What in the world? All right. I hate these autoplay audio ads. But either way, so yeah, this dude stole from an organization that is raising money so they can help people with cancer or terminally ill patient or terminally ill or just hospice type cancer patients. Oftentimes, when you're suffering through cancer and its treatment process, you aren't really able to work and build an income because some of those treatments can really take a toll on a person's body and all that stuff. So a lot of these people end up not being able to afford for rent and utilities and stuff like that. And this charity event is trying to help people in those situations, and this dude stole from it, which is really screwed up. So again, as always, if I get any more information on this story, I will bring it to y'all. Got our next story coming up here. This one's an interesting one. So a Florida school making changes of yearbook photos of 80 girls altered. Or after yearbook photos of 80 girls altered. The goal of altered pics appeared to be to make clothing more modest. So here's an example. This was the original picture for the notebook or for the yearbook, and it was photoshopped and altered to look like this. She photoshopped out the individual photoshopped out the cleavage. And there's a video on here which actually goes through several of the photos that were altered and all that stuff. And it's effectively like they altered a lot of them, and a lot of them were just altering out cleavage like that. But there were a couple where they actually edited out shoulders. So the girl, it was a shirt that may not have necessarily been showing a lot of cleavage. It was a higher drift, kind of similar to the image on the right here, but it showed shoulders. So they edited it to where shoulders were covered up. I'll play this video. It's like 3 minutes long, and it's got a bunch of the pictures that were edited, and we'll go ahead and get to it. I don't know if you're going to hear the audio on it, though. I can just mute it.
Live from the local station, News 4 Jax starts now.
So we'll go ahead. Yeah. So here's a couple of pictures, so you can see how it was edited there. That one was edited for the shoulders, as you can see right there. These ones were edited. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm like, that seems a little Nazi enforcement on the dress code type of thing. Like that seems extremely religious in nature and background on it and all that stuff. I mean, when I pulled this article, first of all, the title of where they posted it in Reddit was what was it? Yeah, so Florida man decides more school teachers should check out teenage cleavage is what they titled this article when they posted it in Reddit. And so that person obviously has an opinion of this particular article, all that stuff, being as it's inappropriate for people to be arguing that this teacher is editing out the pictures of the cleavage like this. I mean, I don't know. I don't honestly, looking at these pictures that I'm seeing here, I'm not seeing anything that I would consider too extremely inappropriate. However, I'm not the be all say all in that. But yeah, again, there's not a lot to this article other than the fact that they're editing these photos without telling the people. And there's a parent of one of the children or students that had their photo edited that is complaining about it and making a big deal. I mean, I could fully understand and accept why they would. But at the same point, I can actually also understand why some people feel that way. It's all generalized ethics and all that stuff for people. But yeah. So let's see. So, and Mickey says, that's not even religious. That's just a Karen coming across as religious. Yeah, I mean, I think the reason I brought up religion is, as far as that goes, is because, like, it is a generally Christian and, oddly enough, Muslim-ish. Muslims way more in depth in it, but like a Christian type thing where you don't show your shoulders or to an even further extent, ankles to men because it's supposed to be attractive and all that stuff. I mean, obviously, the way things go like that have changed over time. This is more of a old-fashioned belief and stuff, but yeah. So, but yeah, they're editing out the stuff. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. All right. So, this is, I believe, our last Florida person story for today. And this one is about a nearly naked Florida woman who's 24 years old, was arrested after leading troopers on a 110-mile-an-hour chase in a stolen Cadillac. There was also methamphetamine that was involved and a couple other things. Let me see if I can find this in the Reddit. Florida man wanted connection to a stolen trailer. Right here. Nearly naked Florida woman was rammed by police after a 110-mile-an-hour chase in a stolen caddy through 2 counties, driving a suspended license and in possession of meth. So that sounds like some absolutely quintessential Florida person stuff. So, Rachel Lynn Stefancic. I don't know. That's an interesting name. 24 of Plant City was flagged down by Highway Patrol. But rather than stopping, she sped off 110 miles an hour in a chase across 2 counties. Stefancic came to a halt after the tactic maneuver by police was arrested. What? Came to a halt after the tactic maneuver by police. I'm assuming they're referencing a pit maneuver and that particular horrible grammatical thing that was. A nearly naked Florida woman was arrested Saturday after leading troopers on a high-speed chase spanning several counties. So I'm kind of curious as to what they mean by nearly naked, first off. Rachel Lynn Stefancic, 24, of Plant City, was flagged down by Highway Patrol in a 2009 Cadillac sedan she was accused of stealing. But rather than stopping, she sped off at 110 miles an hour along Interstate 75 through Hernando County and into Pasco County, where officers rammed her. Pictures show the Cadillac tangled up in a wire fence down at a grass embankment with a cop car just behind. Stefancic came to a halt after the tactical maneuver and was arrested for grand theft auto, reckless driving, fleeing and eluding, possession of methamphetamine, and driving while having her license suspended. She was booked into the Hernando County Jail, where her status is unknown, the Tampa Bay Times reported. So, judging by the way the car is looking right there, it doesn't look like they rammed her. It looks like they pitted her, which in that general area is where you'd see the impact of it. Usually they would try to do it a little bit closer to the rear wheels, but anything in that area will work for a pit. Highway Patrol said Rachel Lynn Stefancic, 24, Plant City, nearly fully unclothed, was immediately taken into custody and arrested for grand theft auto, reckless driving, fleeing and eluding, possession of methamphetamine, and driving while a license suspended. Stefancic was later delivered to the Hernando County Jail. Stefancic has previous arrests for other offenses, including petty theft and drug possession, according to online records. Stefancic came to a halt after the tactic maneuver and was arrested for grand theft auto, reckless driving, fleeing and eluding, possession of methamphetamine, and driving while having her license suspended. And that is that article. So this just bears a bunch of questions. Like, why was she mostly naked in the first place? What does mostly naked mean? And yeah, what does mostly naked mean? Was she like rolling around in a bra and panties, or just like a bikini? You know, was she wearing just a muumuu? Oh, so, but yeah, there's that. Only in Florida. So quick, I have to know how to say it first. Staff and chick. Sick. Yeah. Woohoo, that's marriage material right there. All right, so, but yeah, that was our final Florida person story. We'll go ahead and pop these out. All right, and I've got a few other just odd and interesting stories that we're going to go on to. This one right here is psychedelic fungus causes cicadas' butts to fall off and take their place. Nature, we love you. Please tone it down a bit with the freakiness. Fascinating or terrifying times are approaching us in several U.S. states. Depending on how much you like bugs, brood X cicadas are about to emerge from the ground. In case you don't know what we're talking about, brood X is a brood of periodical cicadas in America. These bugs spend 17 years in the ground as nymphs before they emerge as adults to mate. There are a total of 15 cicada broods in eastern U.S. Out of all of them, brood X is by far the largest. That means that billions upon billions of cicadas are about to take flight and blacken the skies. But what these insects don't realize is that their butts, and they themselves, are in mortal danger. Allow us to introduce Massospora cicadina. It's a funky little fungus that parasitizes with gruesome results. Namely, it makes their butts fall off. And then the fungus replaces it with its own fungal mass. Or should we say fungal ass? No, we probably shouldn't. Butts and drugs. The Massospora infection in a cicada begins innocently enough. The spores make their way into the cicada's body, either through food or air. The horror begins soon after, though. The fungus starts eating away at the cicada's insides, munching on its tissues until its abdomen cracks. That's when its butt falls clean off. This is the fungus's golden opportunity. It grows a white chunk of spores and deposits it in place of the missing badonkadonk. Don't feel too sorry for cicada, though. It hasn't even noticed that any of this has happened because it's high out of its skull. You see, the Massospora produces the same chemical that magic mushrooms do, called psilocybin. In humans, psilocybin causes a distorted sense of time and reality, hallucinations, and intense sense of unity with the universe and increased suggestibility. So you can only imagine how the chemical affects cicadas. On top of psilocybin, psilocybin, researchers have even found infected cicadas that had amphetamines in their system. Holy crap, amphetamines! This cocktail of mind-bending drugs essentially allows the fungus to take full control of the cicada. It becomes a willing, zombified puppet of its new fungal overlord. Gender-bending zombie fungus. But why would the fungus do all this, you ask? For the same reason that the cicadas emerge from the ground, reproduction. Since the cicada doesn't understand that it's infected, it will go on about its usual mating behavior. Of course, without genitals, it can't carry on its lineage, but the fungus can. Basically, it's a fungal STD. Yuck. Really, what they're doing is spreading those spores all over the place. It's a sexually transmitted fungus, said John Lill, chair of biology and a cicada specialist at George Washington University. They engage in normal courtship behavior, yet their abdomen is a big fungal mass. Instead, the attempted copulation results in spreading the fungus even more, he explained. Lill says normal courtship behavior, but that's the case only with female cicadas. The males actually start behaving altogether differently. Before we get to that, a quick 101 on cicada flirting. The male cicada produces its famous buzzing noise to attract females, who, if receptive to mating, will flick their wings in a specific pattern. But fungus-infected males don't only buzz, they also start moving their wings like the females do, which makes them attract both the hottest chicks and the hunkiest dudes of the cicada world. It's great for the fungus because now it can spread to twice as many bugs. It's this gender-bending death zombie fungus, Lil summarized. All hail the worm, all hail the worm. The Massospora infestation in cicadas is nothing new, though. It happens with every cicada emergence because, just like the cicadas, the fungal spores lie dormant before it's time to get busy. Neither is Massospora the only parasite that takes over the minds and bodies of bugs. There's a whole slew of them out there, and all of them are equally creepy. For example, the kamikaze horsehair worm. This cooked spaghetti-looking thing infests crickets and grasshoppers that have acquired it through infected mayfly or mosquito larvae. Once the worm is ready to breed, it takes over the cricket's central nervous system. It forces the insect to find the nearest body of water and hop in, condemning it to drown. That's if it has time to drown. As soon as the cricket is in the water, the worm bursts out of its host and squirts its eggs into the water. Then there's the green-banded broodsack, another kind of worm with a particularly disgusting name. This little guy, however, takes over snails. When a snail comes in contact with infected bird poop, the worm enters it and crawls into its eye stalks. This causes a horrific effect. The eye stalks swell to a grotesque size, become bright green in color, and begin to pulsate and squirm like yummy caterpillars. The bird sac steers its now mindless host to a sunny spot high up on a rock or a branch. It's just the kind of place any snail in its senses would avoid, because they will inevitably get eaten by birds. Once inside the bird, the worm reproduces and the cycle of terror begins anew. Luckily, there aren't any mind-altering horrors bothering humans. Now, anyone reading this, go to an open field during the next full moon and stand perfectly still. It'll all be fine. All right, then. So, zombie parasites for insects. That's kind of crazy. Your tongue is tied in knots tonight. Yeah, my tongue's been doing all kinds of crazy things there. Makes their butts fall off. Wah, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, an interesting parasite there. So, next story. It's another story about zombies. I didn't actually read into this one, so I don't know too much about what's up with it. But Denmark starts digging up 4 million zombie minks. Mass extermination, governmental ineptitude, zombies. This story has got it all. In Denmark, an excavation of massive scale has begun, but the project isn't just any regular construction or landscaping project. Oops. Boop. Instead, the Danish are digging up millions upon millions of corpses. Granted, they're corpses of minks, but corpses nonetheless. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Scandinavian country exterminated every single farmed mink in the country. The call of extreme proportions came after doctors discovered a coronavirus strain that was infecting people through the animals. So, and here's the thing: minks are I do believe they're of the weasel family. Let me Google that right quick. So, mink are dark-colored, semi-aquatic, carnivorous mammals of the genera Neovision and Mustela, and part of the family Mustelidae, which also includes weasels. So yeah, they're a type of weasel. And I know with ferrets, which are also a type of weasel, they can actually be infected with the flu by humans. So if you actually have the flu and you handle or are near ferrets, they can catch the flu from you. And I would assume COVID-19. I don't know if it can be passed from the ferrets to humans, though. I would assume. So I would assume COVID-19 has the same type of thing. It can be passed between humans and ferrets, which are weasels in general. Which this one right here is strain of COVID-19, which did transfer from minks to humans. So, but the call of extreme proportions came after doctors discovered a coronavirus strain that was infecting people through the animals. The masses, and we actually did speak of that story several months ago. The masses of dead minks were then hastily buried, but now the runoff from the millions of corpses is having some unintended side effects. Namely, local residents are concerned that the rotting minks are polluting drinking water around the mass grave. They also worry that the decomposition fluid seeping off the minks could taint a popular swimming spot. Everything going as planned. Workers have now started unearthing the minks, and so far everything is proceeding well. Denmark's agriculture minister Rasmus Prehn said, "You would think that prior to, they're planning on euthanizing and killing all these minks, you figured they'd plan out the disposal of the bodies a little bit better. Like, it's just basic things. You're going to build a mass gravesite. Don't put it near any type of drinking water or any type of local swimming place. In fact, in this type of situation, especially since it's a biohazard that they're killing them for in the first place, incinerate them. I mean, that would make much better sense. But hey, I'm not in the Denmark government or anything like that, so I can't tell you where their thinking was going with that. Anyway, the test excavations of mink are underway in Nørrefelding. Nørrefelding, I think that's Nør, is how that's pronounced in Nordic. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not Norse, but I am relieved to see that everything is going according to plan. Prehn tweeted, 13,000 minks of mink carcasses will not go to another mass grave. Instead, they will serve the public good as energy sources. So they're going to incinerate them now. Mavzhurg Energy Center (MEC) intends to incinerate the corpses as it's at its bioenergy plant near Holstebro in western Denmark. However, the MEC did have to issue a warning to those living near the facility because they're going to be burning biohazardous stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. But why didn't they think of that in the first place? I mean, that's directly where my brain would go. As the corpses start burning up, the stench should soon dissipate, MEC said, hopefully. For the first time. As said, the excavation, which cost $24.4 million, by the way, is going as planned. However, that's a first for Denmark with the whole meat fiasco. To properly appreciate the screw-up of epic proportions, we have to start from the beginning in mid-2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Danish health authorities made disconcerting discovery. They found virus strains that could and had transferred from the minks to people. Not only that, they were much more resistant to any medications available at the time. Faced with a potential viral time bomb, the Danish government made a difficult decision. They signed the death warrant of the country's entire 17 million strong farmed mink population. We have a great responsibility towards our own population, but with the mutation that has now been found, we have an even greater responsibility for the rest of the world as well, said Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. He added that the government would mobilize the police, army, and home guard to help with the cull. And so, as far as this goes, the farmed mink population, they're farming mink for use in clothing, which is a controversial thing anyways. So, government oopsie daisies. The country's mink farmers were understandably less enthusiastic about the plan, but they had no choice but to suck it all up for the greater good, or so everybody thought. In their hurry to resolve the situation, the Danish government had overlooked one teensy-weensy tiny little detail. They realized they had no legal right to exterminate the animals, particularly in farms without coronavirus infections. And that was after they had started already killing the minks. According to Danish law, the government needs a 3/4 majority in the parliament to enact an emergency legislation like the mink cull. It turned out they didn't have that. It seems the government had expected opposition parties to simply dance to their tune, but that never happened. So they had to backtrack and simply recommend that farmers exterminate their minks. We should have clearly communicated whether there is legal basis for the authorities to order the killing of healthy mink herds outside the safety zones. I regret that has not been the case here, said the then Agriculture Minister Morgan Jensen. While the political back and forth continued, so did the cull, though in the end the government's view of the greater good won. But not without some casualties, as the mink lost their lives, Jensen lost his job and as minister due to the scandal. Neither the living dead minks, but everything should have been over once the minks were dead, right? It's not like they could rise up from their graves. Yeah, about that. Remember how we said earlier the minks were hastily buried? The cull came to an end in November, and the mink carcasses went mostly into 2 mass graves in western Denmark. But just a couple weeks afterwards, people started reporting sightings of zombie minks. Some of the dead minks began rising back to the surface. Authorities soon discovered that the 3 feet of sandy, loose soil on top of the graves wasn't enough to weigh the corpses down. Suppose there's a reason why we say we're putting things 6 feet under. As the bodies decay, gases can be formed. This causes the whole grave to expand a little. In this way, in the worst cases, the minks get pushed out of the ground. Denmark's national police spokesman, Thomas Kirstensen, described. This is a natural process. The problem is that the sandy soil in West Jutland is too light, so we have had to lay more soil on top. Combined with the concerns for water pollution, the undead minks quickly resulted in calls to dig the carcasses up, and that's what they're doing now. Hold on, we're going to get some popcorn. If this whole project's history is anything to go by, it'll be a spectacle once they start burning the minks. So, yeah, this is an update on a story that we talked about a little while ago about them having to kill the minks, and we updated it about how that ended up not being successful. And then if we get any updates on what happens with them incinerating the minks, we'll tell you anything about that. Zombie lives matter. Minks are evil. Yeah, I know. Well, they can be, just like like ferrets. Ferrets can be pretty. People don't like ferrets because they could be little pains in the ass and mean. But in my experience with ferrets, they're not that bad. They're actually pretty loving and careful. So the next story here, this one, I pulled up earlier because I read the title and I was curious and I wanted to find out more about it. So, raining blood. Texas woman wakes up to neighbor's blood dripping on her face. It sounds like something that out of a horror movie, like a slasher movie or something like that. It's just like, okay, that makes me curious now. So, no matter how big of a Slayer fan you are, this is not a situation you want to find yourself in. A woman is sleeping soundly in the dead of night when she suddenly wakes up. Something wet is dripping on her from above. Concerned that it might be a plumbing issue, she turns on the light and wipes her face. She looks at her hand and her eyes fly wide with terror. It's smeared with fresh blood. Sound familiar? You've probably seen a similar scene play out in any number of horror movies. I mentioned it. Unfortunately for one Texan woman, horror movies decided to literally bleed into reality. Anna Cardenas from El Paso woke up on May 11th with gore dripping into her apartment through the ceiling. Needless to say, Cardenas was slightly shocked, considering how common blood pouring from the heavens is in the apocalyptic prophecies of many world religions. She might have thought the end of the world was nigh, or the end of days was nigh. Luckily, the world goes on. It wasn't the apocalypse, just her upstairs neighbor's vital fluids seeping into her apartment, because that clearly makes the situation so much better. Waking nightmare. The night before the horror began, Cardenas had gone to bed as usual in her Cielo Vista apartment. It gets pretty hot in Texas, so she had turned her ceiling fan on before hitting the hay. Around 4 a.m., Cardenas told KTSM that Cardenas woke up. She could clearly hear that something was dripping somewhere. She thought it was rain, but then she realized that droplets of something were hitting her blanket and face as well. At that point, she got up to see what the noise was all about. We can only imagine how she felt when she flicked on her light switch. Her entire bedroom, along with her face and hair, were splattered with blood. It grossed me out. I was in shock. I thought, this isn't real. This is a dream. Wake up, Cardenas recalled. Unfortunately, this wasn't a nightmare. The blood was flowing in through the ceiling and running down her ceiling fan, which then flung it all across the room. Oh, that's so horrible. And you got to bring in special cleaning crews to clean that up. So, a man long gone. We're not sure what we would do if we woke up to gore dripping into our place. What Cardenas did was grab the phone. Obviously, call 911. She called maintenance. Really? There's blood dripping from your ceiling and you're calling maintenance. She called the maintenance number for her apartment building to report the, do we call it a leak? Understandably, the person on the other end of the call was a skeptic at first. They said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Blood is falling on me," Cardenas told them. After informing the management company, Cardenas called 911. They were much more ready to believe her, and both the police and firefighters show up at her apartment. The firefighters knocked on the upstairs neighbor's door, but received no reply. Out of abundance of caution, they decided to break down the door. Once inside, they found an older man laying down on the floor. He was already long gone. According to the police, Cardenas' neighbor had died from natural causes. His corpse had been on the floor 5 to 6 days, long enough for it to begin to decompose. The body was laying exactly where my fan is underneath. He had a carpet, but the blood seeped through into my ceiling, Cardenas said. She also recalled when the maintenance company took down her ceiling fan. When it came loose, a pool of blood and decomposition fluid flooded down from the cavity between the ceiling and upstairs floor. An awful impact. The body has now been properly removed, but Cardenas' nightmare isn't over. She says that the event has left her too traumatized to eat, sleep, or be at peace in general. It was awful, an awful impact, she summarized. I could fully understand that. Not only that, Cardenas had never bought renter's insurance as her apartment building didn't require it. As a result, she's now battling the management company over the damages. I told them my bed is covered in blood, and they told me they're sorry, but the insurance won't pay it, said Cardenas. She has been staying in a hotel since her apartment is still uninhabitable. Although the ceiling has been taken out, the stench of death still lingers. Although the ceiling has been taken out, the stench of death still lingers in the rooms, not to mention the flies. As a gruesome cherry on top of it all, Cardenas has had to get rid of all her personal belongings that got blood on them. That is due to the potential of blood-transmitted diseases. Cardenas is also worried that she herself might have caught something. She said she wants a medical exam but hasn't been able to get one yet. To try and cover some of her losses, Cardenas set up a GoFundMe. I'm not going to link to it. I have no other means of shelter, and now all my belongings have been contaminated, she writes on the page. Unsurprisingly, Cardenas decided not to renew her lease at Cielo Vista and is looking for a new place wherever she moves. Hopefully it won't turn into a music video for Slayer's Raining Blood. So with that being said, good luck now if you live in an apartment, because I know that's something that's always going to present to me now. Make sure I don't live under elderly people, because damn. But I mean, if there is a person who dies like that and they're not discovered for quite a while, I mean, that's something that can absolutely happen. And I mean, yeah, that would suck. That would be a real crummy situation. I mean, just the nastiness of it. And obviously, in order to clean it up, you have to bring in biohazard cleanup crews, and that's not cheap. Yeah. Damn. So, okay, yeah, that's nasty. Raining Blood is the name of a Slayer song. It absolutely is. Between the hair and the gas, that's going to be one hell of a fire. Yeah. But yeah, that is a pretty nasty story, and don't ever, yeah, I would never want to live in an apartment after reading that, because damn. I think that might be pretty close to, I have a couple over here in Chrome, but nothing really, anything good. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to call it early today. We've been running for about an hour, so that's cool. That works. Yeah, go ahead. Make sure you go check out WO Entertainment on Facebook. You should find out. You'll check out the pin post. You'll be able to find out all of our shows that we have that you can come listen to and watch with us. Also, check out WHQ, the Facebook group that we run, and hopefully we'll be able to get everything figured out with everyone's schedules moving forward, so we can bring the entire crew back with you and we can start having the better shows again. With that said, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Make sure you join us on Friday for the WO Hideout. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week.